Hi guys, good morning everyone. In the last session, we completed our discussion related to Docker and Docker Compose. Now, in the today's session, we are going to talk about Kubernetes, right? So, Kubernetes is one of the most and a trending tool in the DevOps practices. So nowadays, every DevOps engineer is working on this Kubernetes software. So what is this Kubernetes? Why we need to go for Kubernetes and how to use this Kubernetes as part of our application deployment process. Now, first one, so Docker we already discussed. Docker is used for containerization. So if you want to run your application in any machine without bothering about the dependencies, we can use Docker software. By using Docker, we can containerize our applications. Whereas we are having Kubernetes. Kubernetes is called as orchestration. Docker is used for containerization. Kubernetes is used for orchestration. Already we discussed what is the containerization. Packaging our application dependencies as one single unit for the deployment is called as containerization. So containerization means packaging our application. Containerization means packaging our application plus dependencies as single unit for execution is called as containerization. Can you read that once again? What is the containerization? Containerization means packaging our application plus application dependencies as single unit for execution is called as containerization. To containerize our applications, we are using one software called Docker. Docker is used for containerize our applications. Here we are having another software that is called Kubernetes. What is the main purpose of Kubernetes? The main purpose of the Kubernetes is called as orchestration. What is the meaning of orchestration? See here. Orchestration means managing containers. What is the meaning of orchestration? Orchestration means managing containers. What is the meaning of managing the containers? Create the containers, okay, stop the containers, update the containers, delete the containers, scale up containers, scale down containers. All these things can be done and monitor the containers, scale up, scale down. You can create the containers, you can stop the containers, you can update the containers, you can delete the containers, you can scale up, you can scale down, you can monitor your containers by using orchestration platform. So here we are using Kubernetes for orchestration. In the market, the alternate for the Kubernetes is OpenShift. So there is another software called OpenShift software is available that is also used for orchestration. This OpenShift software is developed by using Kubernetes only. Okay guys, now first of all, this Kubernetes software developed by Google company. Kubernetes developed by Google company. Later Google donated this software to another organization called CNCF organization is available. Google developed this product and they donated this product to some other organization, right? OpenShift is also available for orchestration purpose. OpenShift is developed based on Kubernetes only. OpenShift will internally use Kubernetes only. All right. So now tell me, what is the difference between Docker and Kubernetes? Docker is a containerization software which is used to package our application plus application dependencies as one unit for the execution. We can simplify application deployment process, application execution process in any platform by using Docker. But here we need to create the containers manually. We need to stop the containers. We need to delete the containers. I want to run 10 containers for my application. I want to increase the containers. I want to decrease the containers. That is called management. If you go for Docker, you need to do that management manually. You need to create the container. You need to update that container. You need to stop the container. You need to increase the count of the containers. You need to decrease the count of the containers. Instead of we are doing that work manually, we are going to use orchestration platform. Okay, so what is this orchestration? Orchestration means managing containers, right? Kubernetes is one of the most famous orchestration platform available in the market. Now, Kubernetes is also called as K8s. So between K and S, there are 8 characters are available. That's why people will call it as K8s. So if you see Kubernetes, K and S, in between 8 characters are available. That's why they will call it as a K8s software. Kubernetes is also called as K8s. Kubernetes developed by Google. Kubernetes developed by Google. Kubernetes developed by Google. Kubernetes developed by using Go programming language. So Go language is developed by Google. By using that Go programming language, they developed this Kubernetes software. Sir, to work with Kubernetes, do we need to learn the Go programming language? No, we no need to learn the Go programming language. That software is developed by using Go programming language. It is developed by a company called Google. Kubernetes is also called as K8s. Between the K and S, there are 8 characters are available, right? So using Kubernetes, we can manage Docker containers. Using Kubernetes, we can orchestrate Docker containers. What is the meaning of orchestrate Docker containers? Orchestration nothing but managing. Managing means you can create, you can delete, you can update, you can scale up, you can scale down, you can monitor. All those things can be done by using Kubernetes. In the real time, every application will be deployed by using Docker and Kubernetes. By using Docker, we will create the Docker image. By using Kubernetes, we will create the Docker containers. We will automate the containers creation in the real time by using orchestration platform like Kubernetes. Kubernetes subject is very depth. It's more than our Spring Boot. So if you discuss next 2 months also, Kubernetes will not be completed. That much depth content will be there in the Kubernetes. And only for the Kubernetes, there is a certification exam. Kubernetes, certified Kubernetes administrator. There is a separate exam only for the Kubernetes certification. So if you want to clear that certification, minimum you need to learn 3 months. Minimum you need to spend 3 months on the Kubernetes. Then you will understand that Kubernetes concepts. Then you can write the exam on the Kubernetes. But in the real time, as a developer, you may not get the chance to work with the Kubernetes because that is a DevOps tool. DevOps engineers are going to work with the Kubernetes software to manage our application deployments. Docker we should know because we need to write the Docker files for our application as a developer. But who will create the container? Who will orchestrate our containers? DevOps people will do that by using a platform called orchestration platform, that is Kubernetes. So what is Kubernetes? What is the purpose of Kubernetes? Kubernetes is nothing but orchestration platform. Okay, so here I'm going to give you idea on what is Kubernetes, how to deploy 1 or 2 applications by using Kubernetes. We can't learn the complete Kubernetes here. Right. Now, in the interview, if somebody asks you what is Kubernetes, you should not say that we don't know. So you need to say that, yes, I have idea on the Kubernetes. I practiced Kubernetes. I deployed one application also by using Kubernetes cluster. Right. Kubernetes and Docker. Docker is called containerization software. Kubernetes is called as orchestration software. Orchestration means managing the containers. Kubernetes is also called as K8s. Kubernetes is developed by Google. Kubernetes is developed using Go programming language. Using Kubernetes, we can orchestrate Docker containers. Kubernetes will follow cluster architecture. What is the architecture of the Kubernetes? Docker architecture we have seen. We will write a Docker file. From the Docker file, we will create the Docker image. That Docker image we will store in the Docker hub. Then we can pull that image. We can run that image so that container will be created. Similarly, what is the architecture of Kubernetes? Kubernetes will follow cluster architecture. Kubernetes will follow cluster architecture. What is nothing but, what is the meaning of cluster? Cluster means group of servers. Cluster means group of servers. Now, when we go for a cluster, assume that the boxes are called computers. The boxes are called as computers. Now, like this, we are going to take group of computers in order to set up our Kubernetes cluster. So here, whatever we are taking, this is called as master. Whatever this is called, it is called as master. We can call it as master node, like a manager. Who will manage the complete work is called as manager or master. Who will do the actual work, that is called worker node. Master node will be available and worker node will be available. Worker node 1, worker node 2, worker node 3. And this master node will have communication with all the worker nodes available. So this is called cluster. This is called cluster. Master node will be available and worker nodes will be available. So it is something like a team. It is something like a team, right? So if you go for a project, manager will be available, team members will be available. So client will give the project to the company, company will give the project to the manager, manager will give the task to the team members. Getting my point? So all the team members will be managed by that manager. Which team member has to do which task will be decided by the manager. So here, when we go for Kubernetes cluster, master node will be available and worker nodes will be available. Now, I want to deploy one application on the cluster. Now assume that I'm a DevOps engineer. I'm a DevOps engineer. I want to deploy one Spring Boot application on the Kubernetes cluster. Now, as a DevOps engineer, I will give the task to master node. That master node will give the task to worker nodes. So this is the architecture of the Kubernetes. Kubernetes will follow cluster architecture. Can you guys tell me what is the meaning of a cluster? What is the meaning of cluster? Cluster is nothing but group of servers. So when you go for cluster, always you need to imagine that master will be available, workers will be available. Workers nothing but the people who will do the actual work. Master nothing but the person who will assign the task to the worker. So in the Kubernetes also, master node will be available and worker nodes will be available. This master node is called as control plane in the Kubernetes. For the master node, there is another name in the Kubernetes. That name is called as CP. Nothing but control plane. Control plane nothing but which will control worker nodes in the cluster. Control plane is nothing but the machine which will control worker nodes in the machine. I want to deploy my application on the cluster. So I will send the task to master node. Master node will check which worker node is free, which worker node is available. Give the task to the worker node. In that worker node, our application will be deployed. For example, if this worker node is damaged, no problem. Master node will create another worker node for that. High availability will be available. Our application will never go down if you run the application on the cluster. And here, what Kubernetes will do is, instead of running our application in the one worker node, we will run our application in the multiple worker nodes. Why we will run in the multiple worker nodes? Tomorrow, if one worker node is failed, our application still will run in the another worker nodes. If two worker nodes are failed, our application will run in the third worker node. We will never run our application on the single machine in the real time. So if you run the application in the single machine, if that machine got damaged, if that machine got crashed, application will go down. Then people cannot access our application. Always we need to go for high availability. Always we need to go for high availability. High availability means at any point of time, people should be able to access our application. At any point of time, people should be able to access our application. Now, I want to deploy one Spring Boot application. Now, in the microservices, we have seen instances. What is the meaning of instances? Running the same microservice in the multiple servers with the different port numbers. Same concept we will do in the Kubernetes. Here they are called as replicas. I will run 3 replicas for my project. That means my project will be executed in 3 containers. Those 3 containers will be created in the 3 worker nodes. If one container is not responding, then no problem. Our application will be accessible in the another container. Are you guys able to follow? So which architecture Kubernetes will follow? Kubernetes will follow cluster architecture. What is the meaning of a cluster? Cluster is nothing but group of servers. So in the group of servers, one master node will be available. Multiple worker nodes will be available. What is the duty of the master node? Assign the, take the request given by the team and assign the task to the worker nodes. What is the responsibility of the worker nodes? Run the application as a containers. So containers will be created on the master node. Containers will be created on the worker node. Containers, manager will write the code or manager will give the task for you to write the code. Managers will not write the code. Even my manager don't know Java. My manager don't know what is a database. Managers nothing but people management, not the technology management. Suppose now I'm in the Java development background. So if I become a manager, I can write the coding because I came from the programming background. There are some people who will not come from the programming background, but still they will become the managers. So tomorrow, don't think that your manager will help you to write the code. Some managers don't know coding. Some managers don't know web development. Some managers don't know database. Some managers, first of all, they were from the MBA background. Most of the management people will be from the MBA background. So they will do people management. Okay, they will manage the people, assigning the task to the people, monitoring who is working on which task. Are we completing the tasks on time or not? Who is not able to complete? Why they are not able to complete? What is the problem? Do we need any extra force in the team to complete the tasks on time? That management will done by managers. So in the Kubernetes, that work will done by master node. So I want to deploy Spring Boot application as a container in the cluster using Kubernetes. I will send a request to master node. Master node is also called as control plane. Once we send a request to the master node will understand the request, will identify which worker node is available to run this application. Then it will give the task to that particular worker node. That worker node is going to run our application. Now, when we are running our application, we are going to create multiple containers. We are going to create multiple containers. So if you run the application in one container, then what is the problem? If I run the application in one container, what is the problem? If a container got crashed, then we can't access our application. Always we need to go for high availability. What is the meaning of high availability? 24/7, our application should be up and running. If a one-time container got crashed, other containers should be able to handle the traffic. So that's why we will run our application in the multiple containers. Those are called as instances of our application. My Spring Boot application will have 10 instances. That means my application will run in the 10 servers by using load balancing concept. So here you no need to set up any load balancing. Kubernetes will take care of the load balancing. Okay, good, fine. Kubernetes will follow cluster architecture. Cluster means group of servers will be available. So here master node will be available and worker nodes will be available. Master node which will control worker nodes and will assign task to worker nodes. Worker nodes will listen to master node and will perform action or will perform task given by master node. Master node will be available and worker nodes will be available. Master node which will control worker nodes and will assign task to worker nodes. What is worker node? Will listen to master node, will perform the task given by master node. Are you guys clear with my point? Master node is also called as control plane. In Kubernetes cluster, master node is also called as control plane, which is going to control all the worker nodes available. All right, good. Kubernetes is called orchestration platform. It is developed by Google and donated to CNCF Foundation. Kubernetes is developed by using Go programming language. Using Kubernetes, we can orchestrate Docker containers. Kubernetes will follow cluster architecture. Cluster means group of servers, which will control master node. Master node nothing but it will control worker nodes. Will assign task to worker nodes. In the Kubernetes cluster, master node is also called as control plane. What is worker node? They will listen to master node and will perform task given by master node. Perfect. Now, containers creation will happen on worker node. So in which worker node our container should be created? Who will decide that? Who will decide which container should be created in which worker node? Master node is going to decide in which worker node our Unshi Sai Ramana. In which worker node our container should be created, that will be decided by worker. Okay, fine. Will be decided by master node. Container creation will happen on the worker node. In which worker node, which container should be created, that will be decided by our master node. Master node is called as control plane in the Kubernetes. Guys, architecture is also difficult to understand. Let us see. Kubernetes architecture. Look at this. This is called Kubernetes architecture. మైక్ ఆన్ చేశారు అక్కడ రావట్లేదు ఇక్కడ. More features are there in the Kubernetes when compared with the Docker Compose. In the Docker Compose, load balancing is not available. Self-healing is not available. Scale up, scale down functionality not available. That's it. Only up and down. That's it. Yes. When you are going for Kubernetes, Docker image is mandatory. Only image. అది దాని గురించి మైక్ గురించి. Come on guys, look at this architecture. Just read the points which are there in the architecture. చెప్పండి. 12 o'clock నా క్లాస్ ఉందండి. 12:30కి వస్తాను. సరే సరే. ఓకే. Yeah guys, so you can see the architecture of the Kubernetes. So Kubernetes components, Kubernetes architecture components. Guys, nobody will teach Kubernetes for the freshers, but I'm teaching that. So don't get confused with this. So once you start working on the project implementation, then you will understand the power of the Kubernetes. So first of all, Kubernetes is not for the developers. Kubernetes is for the DevOps engineers, right? So Kubernetes architecture components, the first one is control plane will be available. Then second one, worker nodes will be available. In the control plane, we are having some subcomponents. API server will be available. Then scheduler will be available. Controller manager will be available. etc. So these are the components which are available in the control plane. And coming to worker node, in the worker node, the most important thing is the kubelet. Okay, kubelet will be available. Kube proxy will be available. Kubelet, kube proxy. Then pod will be available. Then container will be available, Docker engine will be available, pod will be available, and Docker engine will be available. Control plane will contain API server, scheduler, controller manager, and etcd. Coming to the worker node, kubelet will be available, kube proxy will be available, pod, container, and Docker engine. Now here, to deploy applications in Kubernetes cluster, we will use kubectl, which is also called as kubectl. Kubectl is a command line utility. Now here we used a command called docker run command. What is the purpose of docker run command? To run the Docker container. So here, if you want to deploy your application on the Kubernetes cluster, then we are going to use kubectl apply. Kubectl is the command line utility which is used to give the requirement to the master node. I want to send a task to the master node to deploy Python application. So for that, to communicate with the master node, we are going to use a command called kubectl, or we can say kubectl. Kubectl is used to deploy our applications on the Kubernetes cluster. In the Kubernetes cluster, control plane will be available and worker nodes will be available. Inside the control plane, API server available, scheduler available, controller manager, and etcd. In the worker node, kubelet available, kube proxy, pod, container, and a Docker engine. To deploy applications in Kubernetes cluster, we will use kubectl. Are you guys able to follow me? Yeah, perfect. Now first see here, what is kubectl? Can you guys tell me what is kubectl? What is the purpose of kubectl? See here, this is CNCF Foundation. Google donated this Kubernetes to the CNCF Foundation. What is the name of that? Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Cloud Native Computing Foundation. They have given the complete information about the Kubernetes, how Kubernetes will work and what is Kubernetes architecture. Now, first one, kubectl. So if you want to communicate with the Kubernetes master node, then we will go for kubectl. Now, I want to deploy my application on the cluster. I will send a task to the cluster by using kubectl. When I send observe carefully. When I send the task to the cluster, in the cluster, control plane will be available. In the control plane, API server will be available. API server will listen to the incoming requests. When I execute kubectl command, so simple, when you click a button, request will go to server. Server will listen your request, server will process your request. Similarly, in the Kubernetes, when I want to deploy my application, I will use kubectl. When I execute a kubectl command, that request will go to API server. When I execute kubectl command, request will go to API server. All the requests will be stored into one database in the cluster. That database name is etcd. So whenever we send a request to the Kubernetes cluster by using kubectl, API server will take our request. API server will store that request data in the etcd. etcd is the database of our Kubernetes cluster. Once the requests are stored in the etcd, scheduler will be available, which is used to schedule pending requests. So which requests we have received, which requests are completed, which requests are not completed will be maintained in the etcd database. Scheduler will go to etcd, will verify which requests are not scheduled, which requests are still pending. Scheduler will identify pending stories or pending tasks available in the etcd. Okay. there is a request to deploy Spring Boot application. Where to deploy that Spring Boot application? On the worker node. Which worker node? It has to find out which worker node is free, which worker node is available to run the application. So here our scheduler will communicate with the worker node agent. Every worker node is having one assistant. That assistant is called kubelet. Kubelet is called as a PA for the worker node. Kubelet will maintain the status of the worker node. Now, scheduler will communicate with the kubelet. Scheduler will communicate with the kubelet to understand which worker node is free to run our container. Based on that, scheduler is going to schedule our application execution on the particular worker node based on the information given by the kubelet. So control plane will be available in one machine, worker node will be available in the another machine. We need to establish the connection between worker nodes and the control plane. That's where kube proxy comes into picture. Kube proxy will provide the network that is required for communicating with the master nodes and worker nodes. Master node, worker node communication will happen through a network. Who will provide that network? That network will be provided by kube proxy. What is the name, guys? Kube proxy. What is a kubelet? What is a kube proxy? Kubelet is a node agent which will give the node information to the control plane. What is a kube proxy? Kube proxy will provide the network that is required to establish the communication between control plane and worker nodes. Are you guys clear? Now, once the application is scheduled on the particular worker node, really the application is deployed successfully or not? What is the status of that? Will be managed by controller manager. Controller manager will be there to manage all the works are happening as expected or not. Okay. Then next one, whatever the container we want to create, that is a Docker image. Our application will be packaged as a Docker image. By using Docker image, we need to create the container. So to create the container, Docker engine is required. So Docker engine will be available in the worker node. In the Kubernetes, container will not be created directly because container is a Docker component. So Kubernetes will create a pod. Inside the pod, container will be created. Pod is a building block that is used to create the containers in the Kubernetes cluster. Kubernetes want to manage the containers. To manage the containers, Kubernetes will use a concept called pod concept. Sir, what is the full form of the pod? There is no full form. The name itself is pod. Pod is nothing but a running process in the Kubernetes cluster. If you want to deploy your Spring Boot application, first you need to create a Docker image. You need to give the Docker image to the Kubernetes cluster. Then Kubernetes will create a container inside the pod by using your Docker image. Are you clear with the architecture now? Look at this. Now you know some names and what is the purpose of them. kubectl. What is the purpose of kubectl? What is the purpose of kubectl? kubectl is used to communicate with the cluster. So we can deploy our applications on the cluster by using kubectl. So kubectl will communicate with worker node or master node? Master node. That means control plane. What components available in the control plane? API server, scheduler, controller manager, etcd. What is the purpose of API server? Listen to the incoming request, store the request in the etcd database. What is etcd? It will maintain request details. It will maintain the requests which are received by our control plane. API server will receive the request, will store the request in the etcd database. Then next one, scheduler. What is the purpose of scheduler? What is the purpose of scheduler? Scheduler is going to check which tasks are not executed as of now. Okay, 1 minute, guys. So kubectl will send the request to the control plane. API server will listen to the request. API server will store in the etcd. Scheduler will go to the etcd and they will identify which tasks are pending. Then scheduler will talk to kubelet. What is kubelet? Worker node agent. It is a PA for the worker node. What PA will do? Schedule. They will prepare the schedule. Suppose if you take chief minister or prime minister, they will have a PA. If you want to meet a chief minister, can you go directly to his house? You need to book your appointment. How do you know on which date, which time he will be free? PA will maintain the list. So every celebrity, politician, they will maintain the PAs. So PA will manage their schedule. So PA will know what are the meetings that he is having today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So similarly, how many pods are running? What is the health of the pod? What is the availability of the pod? Everything will be maintained by kubelet. So scheduler will talk to kubelet. What is kubelet? Node agent. Now, based on the information given by the kubelet, here scheduler will schedule pod execution on the worker node. Here, how our control plane will communicate with the worker node? By using kuproxy. Kuproxy will provide the network that is required for the communication. What is pod? Pod is a runtime instance. In the Docker, directly will create the container. In the Kubernetes, we cannot create the containers directly. Containers will be created inside the pod. Okay. So now, if you want to run your application in 10 servers, you need to create 10 pods. So in every pod, container will be available. I want to delete my application, delete the pod. I want to scale up my application, increase the pod. I want to scale down my application, decrease the pod. So in the Kubernetes, everything is a pod. Pod is nothing but smallest building block that we can deploy on the Kubernetes cluster. Able to follow me? Yes. Let me write some points on those things. To deploy applications in Kubernetes cluster, we will use kubectl. It is CLI. Command line interface. Commands will be available. Now, API server. What is API server? API server will receive request from kubectl and will store in etcd. Will store in etcd. Okay. And next one, scheduler. What is etcd? etcd is Kubernetes database. etcd is Kubernetes database which is used to store request details. Is it to store request details? Next one, scheduler. What is the purpose of scheduler? Scheduler will check pending requests in etcd and will talk to kubelet. What is kubelet? What is a kubelet, guys? Kubelet is worker node agent. Kubelet is worker node agent which will maintain worker node information. Okay. What is the kuproxy? Kuproxy will provide network that is required for cluster communication. So worker node should communicate with the master node. Master node should communicate with the worker node. So the network will be provided by kuproxy. Okay. Next one. So what is a pod? Yes, pod is a smallest building block that we can deploy in Kubernetes cluster. Pod is a smallest building block that we can deploy in Kubernetes cluster. Containers will be created inside the pod. So in Kubernetes, Docker containers will be created inside pod. In Kubernetes, Docker containers will be created inside the pod. Pod is called runtime instance in the Kubernetes. Pod is also called as runtime instance in Kubernetes cluster. Application will be deployed in the pod. So now I want to run my application in 10 servers. 10 pods I need to create. Inside the pod, container will be available. I want to increase application instances, increase the pods. I want to decrease application instances, decrease the pods. So in the Kubernetes, everything will be managed by using pods only. Pod is also called as runtime instance in the Kubernetes cluster. Read these points, all of you. All of you read these points. Container is not the concept of Kubernetes. Container is even we are using the Docker engine, Kubernetes cannot manage the containers directly because it's not the product of the Kubernetes. Okay. So if it is my product, I can manage on my own. It is not my product. Right. So fine. So container cannot be created directly. We will create the pod. Inside the pod, container will be created. So pod is called smallest building block in the Kubernetes. If you want to deploy any application on the Kubernetes, we are going to create pods to deploy that application. If I delete the pod, application will be deleted. If I create the pod, application will be deployed. Just read the points. Yes. Guys, read the points. Yeah. How many people here from BTech CSC IT? Can you stand up? Anybody from BTech CSC or IT? One. Yeah, stand up. Stand up. Stand up. No one from BTech CSC or IT? Two. You? You are from Triple E degree. Anybody from BTech CSC or IT? Nobody. You? Degree. Huh? Triple E. Who is from CSC and IT background? Yeah, stand up. BTech computer science or IT streams? Anyone else? Online students? Not MCA guys, BTech CSC or IT. So yesterday I went to the company, right? They are looking for the people who are specially from BTech CSC and IT background because that is their client requirement. MCA nahi, BTech chahiye. BTech computer science or IT. Only two people. So for those people, interview is there, guys. They are looking for the freshers. So they are looking for very good communication and Java, Spring Boot, microservices knowledge. As I told you yesterday, few people went for the interview, and today they are asking few other people to come for the interview. But the candidate should be from BTech, CSC or IT background. Java, Spring Boot, microservices, and very good communication skills they are expecting. Can you go for interview? You don't want? You? Company, I will tell you the details. Will you go for interview today? No. Why? You don't want to work in night shift. Sir, whether it's night shift or day shift, you are a fresher. Getting into the company is important, man. So I don't want to work in night shift. I want 10 lakhs package. I want MNC company. It won't happen. It won't happen. So as a fresher, getting in the job is the important stuff. So you need to work in the company for 1-2 years as a fresher. Then you can fulfill your dreams, right? So if you are interested to attend the interview, I will send you. Okay, good. Anybody from online batch? If you want to attend the interview, you need to go for the interview. So the online students, the people who are from BTech, CSC, IT background, I will take your details, guys. I will send your details to HR. Maybe they will take your screening test. Once you clear the screening test, then they will call you for the face-to-face interview. I will update you in the group today. Okay. MSc, BSc, EEE, ECE, Civil, they are not asking. They want only BTech, CSC and IT. That is their requirement. Okay. I will send the details in the group. Fine. So good. We are trying to understand Kubernetes architecture components. Okay. Yeah, here controller manager is available. What is the purpose of controller manager? What is the purpose of controller manager? And we'll talk to kubelet to schedule pod creation. Okay. Now here controller manager will manage tasks in cluster. Okay, whether all the tasks are happening as expected or not, that will be taken care by controller manager. What is the purpose of kubelet? What is kubelet? What is the purpose of kubelet? Kubelet is a node agent which will give the node information to the scheduler. What is the purpose of scheduler? What is the purpose of scheduler? Scheduler will schedule pod creation on the worker node based on the information given by the kubelet. What is kubeproxy? What is kubeproxy? It will provide the network communication for cluster communication. And next one, what is API server? API server will take the request coming from the kubectl. So what is etcd? It is a database. API server will store the incoming requests in the etcd. What is kubectl? What is kubectl? Kubectl is a command line utility which is used to communicate with the Kubernetes cluster. Are you guys clear? Perfect. Now, Kubernetes cluster setup. Kubernetes cluster setup. Kubernetes cluster setup. Kubernetes cluster we can set up in multiple ways. There are several ways available to set up Kubernetes cluster. We have several ways to set up Kubernetes cluster. The first approach is Minikube. The first approach is a Minikube. When you go for Minikube, it will provide single node cluster only for practice. Only for practice. Nobody will use Minikube in the real time. When you are trying to learn Kubernetes, if you are beginner in the Kubernetes, if you want to practice Kubernetes concepts, then you need to go for Minikube cluster. When you go for Minikube, what will happen? This architecture will not be available. Master node, worker node, everything will be in the one machine. Everything will be available in the one machine. That's why it is called as single node cluster. When we need to use Minikube, if you want to learn Kubernetes concepts, then only we need to go for Minikube. So can we use Minikube in the real time? No, we cannot. Why? It is only single node cluster. Button will be there on the node. That node can crash. That node can crash, right? And there is second approach is available, that is called self-managed cluster. Self-managed cluster we are going to install by using Kubedium. There is a software called Kubedium. Software is available. It is used to create multi-node cluster. It is used to create multi-node cluster. So here you need to create 3 virtual machines in the Linux. One machine we need to consider as a master node. 2 machines we need to consider as worker nodes. Manually we need to set up the cluster. For that we are going to use a software called Kubedium. So if you go for Kubedium, you can create multi-node cluster, but you need to take care of everything. You need to take care of everything. Now, third approach, provider managed cluster. Provider managed cluster. The example, AWS EKS. If you don't want to create the cluster, you want to use ready-made cluster, then you can go for AWS EKS cluster. In the companies, people will use AWS EKS because do I need to create the cluster? Do I need to manage the cluster? No, I'm looking for ready-made solution. I want a ready-made cluster. AWS will provide a ready-made cluster for us. Azure AKE is available. GCP GKE is available to run Kubernetes managed cluster. So if you go for AWS, we have seen EC2. What is the purpose of EC2 in the AWS? To create virtual machine. What is the purpose of RDS? To create relational database. What is the purpose of S3? To perform storage. Similarly, in the AWS, there is a service called EKS that is used to create Kubernetes control plane. Okay, so if you want to practice Kubernetes concepts as a beginner, then you will go for Minikube, then you will go for single node cluster. So if you want to create multi-node cluster on your own, then you need to go for Kubedium. So I don't want to create because Kubedium cluster setup also difficult. It will take around 40 minutes of time. We need to execute 100 commands to create the Kubedium cluster. So it is a difficult process. All right. So now I don't want to create the cluster on my own. I don't want to manage that cluster. I want a ready-made cluster. So if you want ready-made cluster, then what you need to do? You need to go for provider managed cluster. What is the provider managed cluster available? In the AWS, EKS cluster is available. EKS stands for Elastic Kubernetes Service. Elastic Kubernetes Service. AWS EKS, Azure AKE, GCP GKE, like that there are several provider managed clusters are available. And here AWS EKS, the provider managed clusters are paid services. If you go for AWS EKS, per hour bill will be generated. So here for practice purpose, we are going to create AWS EKS cluster. We will run that cluster for 3 hours. Within 3 hours, we can practice whatever the concepts that are required for the developer. For 3 hours, it may generate bill approximately 200 rupees or 300 rupees. That bill, we can ask them to make it as a 0. We no need to pay that. If you run the EKS cluster for 1 month, you may get 10,000 to 15,000 bill. Okay. So we will create the EKS cluster. We will practice it. Once our practice completed, we are going to delete that EKS cluster. I'm going to explain Kubernetes topics by using EKS cluster. Why? Because if I go for Kubedium cluster, you will get lot of problems with that cluster. Cluster setup is also very difficult. Anyhow, in the company, as a developer, you will not do that setup. That setup will done by DevOps engineer. Just to understand the concepts of the Kubernetes, I'm going to take provider managed cluster, that is called EKS. Now, in the tomorrow session, we are going to set up that EKS cluster. How to set up that EKS cluster? I have given the details in our document. Now go to my GitHub repository. I uploaded one document in the GitHub repository to understand how to set up AWS EKS cluster. So if you go to DevOps documents, here there is a document called EKS setup document is available. If you go to EKS setup, this is also not easy. Okay. So if you want to set up AWS EKS cluster, these are the steps that we need to follow. Create management host, execute these commands, install the CLI, execute these commands, install EKCTL, execute these commands, create IAM role attached to that host, then create the cluster finally. So here, this is the process that we are going to follow to create the cluster. So you don't do that today, guys, because if you do some mistake, you cannot create it again. Tomorrow, I will explain clearly how to create that EKS cluster, or else if I get some time, I will prepare a video how to create EKS cluster in the Kubernetes. I will share that video. After watching that video, then only you try to create the cluster. Directly you don't create that cluster because it is a difficult process. So lot of commands we need to execute. Fine. So with this, we understood theoretically what is Kubernetes and what is Kubernetes architecture. In the tomorrow session, we are going to set up Kubernetes cluster and we are going to deploy that Spring Boot application on our Kubernetes cluster. Are you guys clear? Yes. Any questions, anyone? EKS. Issues will come. Lot of issues. My project is using EKS cluster. Most of the people. Nowadays, everything is cloud. Right. Any questions, anyone? Any questions, anyone? No questions? So good. All of you completed the practice on the Docker? Right? So tomorrow we'll practice 1 or 2 examples on the Kubernetes concepts, right? So if I give the video today on the cluster setup, you also try to create that cluster before coming to tomorrow's class. Cluster setup will take 15 to 20 minutes of time. If I do that setup in the class, the total time will be taken for the cluster setup only. Okay. So if I give the video, please go through that video, then practice it and create the cluster. So I will tell you how to delete the cluster also once our practice is completed. Remember, provider managed clusters are commercial. So they are going to charge the money to provide the cluster for us. EKS cluster is paid service. It's not free service. Yes, if your cluster is running, bill will be generated. Even if you don't deploy the application also, bill will generate. Just one command, that's it. Clear, guys? Able to understand? Fine. All of you practice the Docker? Completely. Docker Compose also. Yeah, very good. So after Kubernetes completed, then we are going to learn Jenkins. Then once the Jenkins is completed, we will integrate Maven, GitHub, Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes. We are going to create a complete pipeline. If I click the button, application should deploy in the Kubernetes. Completed DevOps CI/CD pipeline we are going to learn. Maven will be there, GitHub will be available, Jenkins will be there, Docker will be there, Kubernetes will be there. So in the real time, end-to-end application deployment process, how application will be deployed in the real time, end-to-end process we are going to practice. Don't neglect the practice. Yesterday I got surprised. 95% of the people not completed the project development. You don't have that seriousness. If you don't practice these tools, you will not understand real-time deployment process in the company. So please practice. If anybody not practiced Docker, today also you have time. Practice the Docker concepts, including Docker Compose. Tomorrow you need to practice Kubernetes. Only 1 day time you will have for the Kubernetes. After that, you need to delete the cluster. Otherwise, bill will be generated. After that, we will go for Jenkins, right? Jenkins, we will take 2 to 3 days to understand. What is Jenkins? Why Jenkins? How to set up the Jenkins, right? Now, fine. Thank you. With this, I'm stopping. Tomorrow I'll continue. Coming for logical programming classes? I see very less number yesterday as well. People are not coming to the classes. Tomorrow, if you are not able to write the program in the interview, you will lose the chance to get the technical round. Please attend the classes. Come to the class. It is like logical thinking. Logical thinking is not something which we can learn in 1 or 2 days of time. It is a continuous learning process. If you attend that class for 1 month, then you will get more ideas to write the programs. Fine. Thank you, guys. Logical programming not free for JRTP. It is paid. Only for full stack people it is free. Yeah, good. Thank you, guys. We'll continue tomorrow.